You date someone for years. They leave. Fine. People break up. That happens. But then they go and start dating one of the most famous supermodels on the planet. Someone whose face has been on magazine covers since before some of you were born. And you, the person they left behind, just have to sit there and watch the whole world talk about it. Now, most people in that situation would move on, block the number, and never look back. But Gabriela Berlingeri is not most people. Because when Bad Bunny came back, she let him in. And in 2026, the two of them are sitting at dinner tables across South America like the last few years never happened. So today, we're going to figure out exactly what is going on. And more importantly, what nobody is saying out loud. Shh, turn the volume up, but keep it low. This is Rap Deepest Secrets, the one place the labels can't control. Exposing the codes, the cover-ups, the real cost of fame. Now back to the video.
Let us start from the beginning because context matters here. Bad Bunny, born Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico, is not just a musician. He is a phenomenon, the kind of artist that comes along once in a generation and rewrites the rules of what is possible. We are talking about a man who became the most streamed artist on Spotify 3 years in a row, a man who headlined Coachella and made the entire world learn Spanish whether they wanted to or not. His concerts do not just sell out, they crash ticketing websites, they cause traffic jams, they make people cry in parking lots before the show even starts. He won Album of the Year at the Grammys. He's not just famous, he's the kind of famous that changes a city's economy when he announces a tour date. And with that level of fame comes a level of public scrutiny that most of us will never understand. Everything he does gets analyzed. Every relationship he's in becomes the subject of think pieces and Twitter threads and TikToks with 15 million views. So when Bad Bunny makes a move, whether in music or in love, the entire world is watching. And in 2026, the entire world is watching him have dinner with Gabriela Berlingeri. Now here's where a lot of coverage gets it wrong. Most outlets describe Gabriela Berlingeri as Bad Bunny's girlfriend or his ex or his maybe wife, and then move on. But that description sells her short in a major way. Gabriela is a Puerto Rican model, jeweler, and internet personality. She has her own career, her own following, her own identity that exists completely outside of his orbit. She met Bad Bunny in 2017 in Puerto Rico, back when he was already rising, but not yet the global supernova he would become. And here's the thing about that timing that nobody talks about enough. She chose him before all of this, before the stadium tours, before the Grammys, before the Coachella headlines. She was around when he was still building, still grinding, still figuring out exactly how big this was going to get. And when he put her in the Titi Me Preguntó video as his bride, even if it was just a creative choice, even if it was just for the art, that says something. You do not cast just anyone in that role. You cast the person who feels like home. So when they quietly broke up in 2022, the question was never really whether it was over. The question was always whether it was just paused. Now let's talk about that 2022 split because it's important to understand how it happened, or more accurately, how it did not happen. There was no explosive argument that got leaked to TMZ. There was no Instagram post from either of them saying we have decided to go our separate ways. There was no press statement, no tears on a talk show, no viral tweet. They just stopped appearing together. That was it. The relationship ended the same way a lot of real, serious relationships end, quietly, privately, without performing the pain for an audience. And that restraint tells you something about both of them. In an era where celebrities use breakups as PR moments, these two had the discipline, or maybe the respect for each other, to just let it be private. No villain, no victim, no narrative handed to the media on a silver platter. Just two people going their separate ways and keeping their dignity intact while doing it. But here's the suspicious part. Even after the split, Gabriela never disappeared completely from his world. She never made public comments throwing shade. She never positioned herself as the wronged party in some public soap opera. She just went quiet. And in celebrity culture, going quiet is almost always more interesting than making noise. And then in 2023, Bad Bunny started dating Kendall Jenner. And look, let's be honest about what that means in terms of the cultural optics, because this is not just a celebrity relationship. This is a collision of two entirely different worlds. On one side, you have Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican kid from a working-class background who hustled his way to the top of the music industry on sheer talent and cultural authenticity. On the other, you have Kendall Jenner, a woman who grew up on camera, whose family basically invented the modern influencer economy, and who has been one of the most photographed women in the world since she was a teenager. They were first spotted sharing a kiss after a sushi date in Los Angeles in early 2023. The internet lost its mind, as expected. Fans speculated, gossip blogs ran wild, and suddenly Bad Bunny's personal life was getting as much attention as his music, which is saying a lot. The relationship stayed mostly private, which was impressive given how much pressure there was from the media to get every detail. But cracks started showing later that year. Kendall began posting cryptic messages online. She celebrated her birthday without him. The energy shifted, and by December 2023, multiple outlets confirmed what the vibe had been suggesting for months. It was over. No closure, no final chapter. Just done. And just like that, Bad Bunny was single again. And somewhere in Puerto Rico, Gabriela Berlingeri was living her life, minding her business, not saying a single word to anybody. Okay, pause. Before we get into what happened next, because what happened next is the part that has people genuinely questioning everything. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that button, turn on notifications, because we do this every single week. We take the stories that everyone is already talking about, and we go deeper than the headlines. We ask the questions that the gossip blogs are too lazy to ask. And if you're the kind of person who watched this far into a video about Bad Bunny and actually wants to understand the full picture, then this is your channel. Subscribe. And now, let's get into the part that nobody saw coming. So, we are now in 2026. Bad Bunny is at the Grammys. He's up for Album of the Year, and he wins. Big moment. Cameras are everywhere. The whole world is watching. And sitting in the audience, clapping, is Gabriela Berlingeri. Not on the red carpet, not in a front row seat with a spotlight on her. Just there, in the crowd, applauding. Quietly. Now, some people saw that and thought nothing of it. Old friends, maybe. Mutual support. Nothing to read into. But pay attention to the choice. She did not have to be there. She was not a presenter. She was not a performer. She bought a ticket, or got a seat, specifically to be in that room on that night. And she watched him win one of the biggest awards in music, and she clapped. Think about what kind of emotional intelligence that requires. What kind of history between two people makes that moment feel natural rather than complicated? That is not the behavior of someone who has moved on and has no feelings. That is the behavior of someone who has processed something, accepted something, and made a very deliberate decision about where they want to stand. Then came Buenos Aires, and this is where the story stops being a soft romantic comeback and starts feeling like something out of a spy film. Bad Bunny and Gabriela Berlingeri had a romantic dinner in Argentina, and the man, the 31-year-old global superstar who just won Album of the Year and sells out stadiums in minutes, showed up to this dinner wearing a hoodie pulled over a white cap, sunglasses on indoors, and a plaid mask covering the lower half of his face. At dinner. In a restaurant. Now, let us think about that for a second. If you are trying to avoid attention, you do not go to a restaurant. You order in. You cook at home. You do literally anything that does not involve being in a public space where people with phones can see you. So the mask, the hoodie, the whole undercover look, it was not really about hiding, it was about controlling the narrative. He wanted to be there. He just did not want it to become a headline before he was ready for it to become a headline. That is a very specific, very calculated kind of privacy. And then he made a solo exit from the restaurant, slipped into a waiting car, gone. Gabriela left separately in her own SUV, in a sleek brown leather outfit, completely composed. Two people who clearly planned every detail of how that evening would end. This was not two people grabbing dinner on a whim. This was a production. And then, Sao Paulo, April 2026. And everything is different. No mask this time, no hiding. Bad Bunny in jeans and shades, relaxed, unbothered, present. Gabriela in a shimmering gold dress with a denim jacket draped effortlessly over her arm, like she already knew the cameras were going to be there and dressed accordingly. They had dinner, together, in public, and the energy was completely different from Buenos Aires. There was no escape plan, no solo exits, no elaborate disguise. Just two people at dinner in a city that is not their home, not even slightly trying to hide it anymore. That is a shift. That is a deliberate, conscious decision to stop managing the story from the shadows and just let people see what is happening. And what is happening, based on everything from the Grammys to Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo, looks a lot like two people who have been navigating their way back to each other for months, maybe longer, and have finally decided they are done pretending otherwise. The questions nobody is asking out loud. Why did she go to the Grammys? Why that night, that seat, that particular silence? Why Buenos Aires, of all places? Why not Puerto Rico, where they're both from? Why Argentina? Why the elaborate disguise in one city and complete openness in the next? What changed between those two dinners? And why, after all of this, has neither of them said a single word publicly about any of it? Here's what the internet has been whispering about, and this is the part where you need to put down your phone for a second and actually think about this. There's a rumor, unconfirmed, undenied, just hanging in the air like smoke, that Bad Bunny and Gabriela Berlingeri may have already gotten married, quietly, privately, without telling anyone. No engagement announcement, no wedding photos on Instagram, no ring spotted on a red carpet, nothing. Just two people who have known each other since 2017, who broke up and came back again, who have been careful and deliberate about every single public appearance they've made together in 2026, and one of them might have already said "I do," while the rest of us were still debating whether they were officially back together. That is a very specific, very calculated kind of privacy. And here's why that rumor feels plausible rather than ridiculous. Look at the pattern. The Grammys appearance with no announcement, the Buenos Aires dinner with the full disguise and separate exits, the Sao Paulo dinner where suddenly none of that careful management was necessary anymore. That is not the timeline of a couple that is newly rekindled and figuring things out. That is the timeline of a couple that already knows exactly where they stand, and has known for a while, and have been slowly, carefully, on their own terms, deciding when to let the world catch up. The man who built an entire career on doing things his way, on his terms, on his timeline, may have done the same thing with the most important decision of his personal life, and we would all be the last to know, on purpose. Now, step back from the celebrity gossip angle for a second and look at what this story is actually about, because underneath all the paparazzi photos and the Twitter speculation and the gossip blog headlines, there's something genuinely interesting happening here. Gabriela Berlingeri was there before the peak. She knew this man before he was the most streamed artist on the planet. She was around when the fame was building, when the pressure was mounting, when the entire world was starting to close in. She was close enough to be cast as his bride in a music video, and then the relationship ended, and she did not weaponize that history. She did not sell her story. She did not leak private details to tabloids. She went quiet, maintained her dignity, built her own career, and waited. And here's the thing about waiting: real, patient, unperformed waiting. It's either the most loving thing a person can do or the most strategic, and in Gabriela's case, it might just be both. Because when Bad Bunny came back in 2026, she was still standing, still unbothered, still herself, and she showed up to Sao Paulo in a gold dress like she had been expecting this was how it was going to end, because maybe she had. The Kendall chapter, as dazzling and high-profile as it was, lasted about a year. The Gabriela chapter has been going since 2017, 9 years. With a gap in the middle, yes, but 9 years of history doesn't disappear because two people took a break. Sometimes the break is the thing that shows both people exactly what they actually had. And look, whether you care about Bad Bunny or not, whether you follow celebrity news or think it's all completely pointless, there's something real in this story that's worth paying attention to. The person who was there before the fame, who chose you when choosing you was not the glamorous option, who gave you your space when you needed it without making you feel guilty for needing it, that person is rare. Most people don't have the emotional maturity to handle that kind of situation with that kind of grace. Gabriela did. She didn't chase, she didn't compete, she didn't try to out-glamour Kendall Jenner on social media or make herself more visible to remind him she existed. She just lived, quietly, intentionally, on her own terms. And somehow, without doing any of the things that people usually do to win someone back, she ended up in Sao Paulo in April 2026, having dinner with the man she's known for 9 years, in a gold dress, looking like she knew the whole time this was how it was going to end. That's not luck, that's character. So, are they officially back together? Almost certainly yes. Are they already married? Nobody knows for sure. And are they going to tell us anytime soon? Based on the pattern of everything we just walked through, probably not. They'll do it on their terms, in their time, in their way. And honestly, respect. If you watched this entire video and felt like you got something more than just a recap of a celebrity relationship, then you already know this channel is for you. We don't just read headlines here, we read between the lines. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, and come back next week because we have another story that looks simple on the surface and absolutely is not. See you then.